Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, the New York Times recently released a giant potential shortlist for Donald Trump's potential running mates for VP. And I thought we would take some time to analyze the shortlist, see if these picks would be good picks or not good picks. A lot of them have been floated as potential picks that Trump would consider for VP. Now, Trump is ahead in the primary polling. He's polling above 60% in the aggregate. And on top of that, he's defeating Biden in the general election by nearly 3 points in the popular vote. So I think it's important. And I've gotten a lot of people saying, who's the VP going to be? And I always say the VP pick is not as important as some people think it is, but definitely you're looking for somebody who can bring something to the table while also not being somebody who's going to stab Trump in the back regarding his agenda. And probably, given the fact that we don't have any like future stars that are ready, that are like eye-popping for 2028, that Trump would realistically pick as VP, probably best he picks somebody that brings something to the table, but also is not going to be seen as an instant front runner for 2028. So nevertheless, here we go. We're going to go through this list. It divides it up by category, starting off with the political veterans. Tim Scott and Nikki Haley are the first two. We'll start with Tim Scott. They say that he's bringing diversity to the table, and he talks about faith sometimes. That's basically all the New York Times has said in regards to Tim Scott. But you look at Tim Scott, he completely bombed on the debate stage, and you need a good debater in terms of your VP, because that's really one of the only times people really see the VP is on that debate stage, or maybe when they're giving a speech at the RNC or whatever. But besides that, you're looking at Tim Scott, and it's like the guy also has a woke track record in Congress. He rejected a lot of Trump's judicial appointees because of racism or whatever. He's a woke grandstander, and he's one of the reasons why Trump's 2020 agenda spent a lot of time pandering to certain demographics that are not going to vote Republican regardless of how much energy that you channel into outreach in that direction. So either way, Scott would not be a good pick. And on top of that, the whole like phantom girlfriend thing is weird. And honestly, I think the real answer to who his real girlfriend is probably the other senator from South Carolina, but that's beside the point. Talking about Nikki Haley would be an utter disaster. I mean, she is a warmongering neocon, even probably more so than she was a few years ago, and that's saying something, because she always has been, and she is a backstabber, make no mistake about it. She's somebody that the establishment loves. That's why a lot of donors are flocking to her now, because they know that DeSantis is basically running a sinking ship that everybody's getting off of. But you're looking at that, there's really no pro that I see, oh, she's a skilled debater. She comes off as insufferable. I mean, she's basically Republican Hillary Clinton, and given some of the things that she said about social media, regulation, trying to make sure that you can't even have an anonymous account, a big negative regarding free speech measures, and all the things she said about immigration, foreign policy over the years. She is a 2004 Republican on steroids. I think she'd be worse than George W. Bush, to be honest, if she ever got in the Oval Office. I will say he's going to steer clear from her, and he should. And I think that he understands that she's just somebody that will probably try to get on his good side to butter him up when she realizes that she's not going to be the nominee, and she's going to try to get that position because she lusts for power. But honestly, I think Trump will be intelligent enough not to give her the time of day. Then you look at Tom Cotton. Tom Cotton is somebody great on domestic policy, good on immigration, but on foreign policy is kind of a disaster. I don't hate Tom Cotton. I just don't think he's really going to be considered by Trump to be VP. And then you have Marco Rubio, who they go on to say that he is somebody who has wide appeal and he speaks Spanish and that he's been close with Trump. And while that's true, and Rubio has gotten a lot better on the issues compared to when he ran back in 2016, he is somebody who is relatively eloquent while speaking. He'll be a decent debater on the debate stage. I think he brings something to the table. He also still has those blind spots on amnesty in the past, even though it was like 10 years ago. And they're also from the same state of Florida. The New York Times didn't do a very good job in the cons department because they clearly left that out. You can't run a running mate from the same state. Now, you could have Trump change his residency, but I don't really think it's likely, and I think that he just would rather have Rubio be an ally in the Senate, would avoid a potential Senate race. Even though Florida's not really that competitive anymore, it's still a hassle. You don't want to deal with that. And then they put on the list Mike Pompeo. Mike Pompeo, he's been just a grandstanding neocon for the most part. Was he the worst Secretary of State? He wasn't really the best Secretary of State. That's the most important thing. And he was a lot more hawkish than we really should have been on a lot of things. And he's from the Midwest. Does he really have that Midwestern appeal? He's kind of like a country club style Republican as a whole. So you're looking at that and it's just like, I don't really think that it's going to happen. Pompeo's kind of faded away. A lot of people said he would run for president in 2024, and then he didn't, and then he's been counter-signaling Trump. I don't even think Pompeo's going to be close to the shortlist, to be honest, even if he would have been, a few years ago. So then we go to the Loyalists. And these are people that tend to be friendly with Trump. A lot of them will say that they're proud MAGA, and they still have a decent stature in politics as a whole. And Trump needs somebody who has both, I think. Trump needs somebody who is not going to stab him in the back, but somebody that also has wide appeal and bring something to the ticket and would help him. I'd like the idea of J.D. Vance a lot. They put him on this list here, but he's only been in the Senate for not even a year at this point. I don't think it's likely. I think Vance might consider a run in 2028 regardless. He'd be on my short list for people who I would support in a 2028 primary. And he was not the biggest Trump backer back in 2016, obviously, but he came around and he's one of Trump's most vigorous defenders, as the article puts it. And he's very good on immigration, trade, foreign policy, etc. He's younger than Trump. We know that. I think that's a good thing. But for some reason, once again, doesn't include the big con. He doesn't have a lot of time in the Senate. A lot of people would just kind of view him as like, oh, he's an office climber or whatever if he was going to be on the ticket. So while Vance, I think, will be a very staunch ally of Trump's agenda in the Senate if Trump wins in 2024, probably is not going to be his VP, but could be a potential future VP or presidential contender. And then up next, we have Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who, again, has only been governor for 2 years. She's been in the West Wing before. She was the press secretary and has been a supporter of Donald Trump for a while, formally endorsing him in November. But still, I do think that the experience thing does play some sort of a role. And once again, it doesn't mention that. Up next, we have Kristi Noem. Noem is somebody who I'm not the biggest fan of, but I think this might be the most realistic option. You see their rally that they did there. I think Noem put the Trump-Noem thing up on the screen to kind of tease it. But at the end of the day, it does kind of seem as if that might not have really sat that well with Donald Trump. Trump likes her. It's been rumored that Trump is probably more inclined to pick a woman this time around to be his VP, which I don't really think is the best strategy. I think that if he picks a woman, fine, but it needs to be the best person overall for the job. Is that Kristi Noem? I mean, she's from the Midwest. She has ties to both the establishment and the MAGA wing, but still, I personally am not the biggest fan of her overall, and you look at the fact that she's really beholden to certain donors, and then there's a lot of people in her legislature that are actually like more conservative than her that don't like her. She tries to primary them out. Not really the best look overall. I do think she's probably on the realistic shortlist. I don't know if Trump chooses her or not, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. I just would not be a big fan of it. But I think that's kind of the recurring theme with a lot of these VP options. There you have John Ratcliffe, who nobody really knows that much overall. I mean, a lot of people watching this video may have never heard of him. I don't know too much about him. He's close to Trump. He was a former congressman in Texas and has been a Trump defender on a lot of these legal things. But overall, not entirely sure that he's going to be somebody Trump would consider to be a front runner for the position, especially because even many politically inclined people like me and the people that watch this channel have not heard a whole lot about him. Then you have Kari Lake, who I don't even think we should really be talking about because Lake's running for Senate. And I think that Trump potentially might not want somebody on the ticket who might take his shine away per se. Lake is very charismatic. Overall, I think Lake would be best suited running for Senate as she is, and then Trump is likely going to be picking somebody else for VP, especially because Lake doesn't have any experience in government in any capacity, which again, Trump did it on his own back in 2016, but that was just Trump then. Trump is still seen as this outsider. Feel like he's going to probably pick somebody who is, I wouldn't say a total establishment hack, but he's going to pick somebody who might have more political experience overall. And then you have Vivek Ramaswamy, who I like a lot. I think he has some blind spots on policy. His past has not been 100% vetted, but I like Vivek. I like seeing him go out there and go into these debates and just crush everybody. It's great to see. I will say that the establishment doesn't like him a whole lot, which kind of is another good thing, in my opinion, for his potential future political bid, so long as he kind of deals with some of those policy blind spots that I disagree with him on, like immigration, like trade, for example. But either way, I don't know if Vivek is really going to be considered. He said he doesn't even want to be VP in the past, but either way, he's kind of seen as somebody who's kind of like a younger Trump, and Trump might again want somebody who is more of like a more established figure per se, and somebody who doesn't have like a ridiculous amount of charisma, because that's kind of like Trump's thing. So up next we have the up-and-comers, which these are lesser known on the national stage, but still people that will be considered. You have Byron Donalds, who once again, I like Donalds a lot. He has appeal to both wings of the party. He is somebody who is younger. He would bring potentially that aspect of it to the table. He is a good debater. I've seen clips of him on CNN. It's true. But once again, from Florida, and that will be an issue unless Trump changes his residency. Otherwise, Donalds would potentially be considered, and having Donald Trump / Byron Donalds, you would have the Trump-Donalds ticket, which would be interesting, and I don't know how that would exactly play out, but I'm not opposed to that idea. And then you have Elise Stefanik on this list, who is younger. She's a woman, which means Trump may be more inclined to pick her. She's from New York, which is not really a swing state, but it is moving to the right. Potentially that could help with the popular vote overall, even though it's just bragging rights and doesn't mean anything. But nonetheless, she's been better lately in Congress. But she started off as a centrist, and I don't know if that exactly is a good thing, especially if you're propping somebody up for 2028. Not really the biggest fan of Stefanik overall, kind of like Noam. Although Stefanik has been better as of late, she has not entirely been 100% ideal. Up next, you have Tudor Dixon. I don't even know why she's on this list. Whoever made this list is not exactly doing themselves any favors, because Dixon ran for governor. She lost by 10 in Michigan, which, again, that's not going to really add to the appeal. And her comments on, like, abortion without exceptions definitely hurt her to some extent, and I don't think Trump wants somebody on the ticket that would go out there and do that. Overall, I would have to say that Dixon is probably not going to even be close to being considered. Then you have Nancy Mace, who has an awful track record in Congress. She's just barely starting to turn it around, and it's kind of interesting to see that there. But her past is kind of a little bit of a mess, and when it comes to a lot of these social issues, or just issues as a whole, she's not really been great on them. And I don't think that she would really increase the appeal a whole lot, even when it comes to, oh, he's going to pick a woman, compared to some of these other people in consideration. Not a fan of Nancy Mace. Then you have Wesley Hunt, who is from Texas. He has endorsed Trump early, and he is somebody who has been an electoral overperformer, but still, he hasn't really been floated a whole lot. It's possible Trump would consider him. He would bring Sunbelt appeal. He is from the state of Texas, and Texas is not really that much of a swing state, at least not yet. Trump should win it, but it would definitely lock down Trump in Texas for sure. He could focus more resources on other states. And then you have the wild cards. And these are long shots, but again, it says Trump is not predictable. That's something this article is right about. Tucker Carlson, that would be a dream ticket. He is somebody that can speak to the average voter very well, very articulate, very eloquently, and he is somebody who has been very Trumpian in philosophy for a very long time, and he's somebody that I would love to see elevated to be that 2028 frontrunner. A lot of people said he wouldn't run because he doesn't have a reason to leave his cushy Fox News job. Well, he's not at Fox News anymore, so we'll really have to see. And Trump said he would consider him, but apparently Tucker said something in like a heated argument about Trump back in 2021, but they've really made up since, so I don't know if that would really hold back Trump from choosing him. And it says he would alienate many other kinds of voters. I'm not necessarily sure he would. Tucker Carlson is somebody that economically speaking can speak to a lot of voters across the Midwest in a way that a lot of these other people couldn't. I feel like Tucker on the ticket would pretty much lock down Wisconsin and possibly help Trump out a great deal in Michigan and Pennsylvania as well. And then you have Rick Scott, who, again, another Florida senator. I don't think Trump is going to pick somebody from Florida. He's also not somebody who I think is really all that electorally viable. He barely wins elections. He always wins them, though. He wins them by like 1%. That's probably going to change in 2024. But when it comes to Florida, he's got a Senate race there. He's going to run. And he's also somebody that kind of screwed Republicans over in terms of how the Senate funding was allocated. He didn't do a very good job of that in 2022. Now, it is true he supports Trump, unlike the current governor of Florida, who is running a delusional campaign against Trump and is failing and has lost half of his support since the start of the year, if not even 2/3 of his support. But nonetheless, Scott, I don't really think will be considered. And then you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who she's tried to like moderate her image per se, and she has been somebody who has been shilling for people like Kevin McCarthy and these other people, but I really don't believe that MTG is going to be picked. She hasn't really even been all that solid on the issues lately, and as a result, it's still a political risk that is not worth taking, especially at this point. So you're looking at this whole list. I don't really see anybody I'm thrilled with. I don't really think Tucker's going to be picked, although it would be pretty incredible to see, but we'll have to see. I just hope Trump picks somebody that is not going to completely stab his entire agenda in the back. And we'll have to see what happens between now and next summer when the VP pick is going to be selected. But either way, this is your short list. I know it's the New York Times, but a lot of these people are actually on the short list. And we will have to see who Trump decides to pick. It's probably going to be somebody like Noam as of right now, which I'm not thrilled with. But then again, the VP doesn't matter as much as some people really think it does, and I don't necessarily think that whoever he picks is going to be seen as that instant 2028 frontrunner, because you have all these other up-and-comers within the party that are going to potentially run in 2028. If Carrie Lake wins in 2024, the Senate seat, she'll definitely be running. Maybe J.D. Vance will be running. You'll have a big new bench of a lot of different people that I think would be very solid for 2028 that would obviously do a lot better than like a Noam or a Stefanik, but we'll really have to wait and see. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle out.